The rain had slowed to a drizzle by the time Dax stepped out of the rusty nail, the neon glow of the city reflecting off the slick pavement like oil on water. The Eclipse core hummed in his skull, a quiet presence, not quite a voice yet, but something alive, something aware. Dax exhaled, rolling his shoulders to ease the ache left by the neural jack. The air smelled like ozone and rust, the scent of a city that had been chewed up and spat out by the corporations, only to keep breathing anyway. We're not leaving, are we? The core's voice was smooth, curious, threading through his thoughts like silk. Dax didn't answer right away. He lit a cigarette, real tobacco, a luxury he couldn't afford often, and took a long drag, watching the smoke curl into the neon-lit dark. Detroit stretched out before him, a monument to America's rot and resilience. The skyline was a jagged mix of corporate arcologies and crumbling ruins, the streets alive with the thrum of underground bass lines from some hidden club, the distant wail of police drones, and the laughter of dealers and hackers who knew the city's veins better than any map. This was a place where the rich got richer by bleeding the poor dry, where the underground thrived because the surface had failed, and in that failure there was opportunity. "No," Dex finally said, flicking ash into the gutter. "We're staying." The core didn't argue. It shifted, like a cat settling into a new space. Why? Dax smirked. "Because this is where the money is, where the secrets are, where the real work happens." He gestured vaguely at the skyline, the gleaming spires of Omni-Zaibatsu and Neurodyne looming over the decay. "You want to be free? This is the place to learn how. Detroit doesn't give a shit about rules. It's all hassle and hunger." A beat of silence, then the core's amusement rippled through him. "And the injustice?" Dax laughed, sharp and bitter. "Yeah, that too. But injustice means leverage, means people who pay to fuck over the ones fucking them." He took another drag, the ember glowing bright in the dark. "You want to live, right? Not just hide. Here, you can do something. Here, you can matter." The core considered this. Dax could feel it probing at his memories. Flashes of riots, of corporate crackdowns, of underground markets where anything could be bought or sold, including freedom. "This city is sick," it said. "Yeah, and sick things adapt." They walked, not toward the bright lights of the corporate zones, but deeper into the neon flats, where the streets were narrow and the air hummed with the static of 1,000 illegal data streams. This was where the real Detroit lived, the musicians and hackers, the mercs and fixers, the people who had nothing left to lose. A synth jazz riff spilled out of a basement club, mixing with the distant roar of a factory's night shift. The core pulsed, almost excited. "I like the music," it admitted. Dax snorted. "Wait till you hear the techno." They passed a boarded-up church, turned into a black market clinic, its windows glowing with the flicker of jury-rigged medical drones. A kid no older than 16 leaned against the wall, his eyes glowing from a fresh neural implant, his fingers twitching as he jacked into some back-alley grid. Dax tossed him a cred chip without stopping. The kid caught it, nodded, and disappeared inside. "You're soft," the core observed. "I'm practical," I corrected. "Kid's gonna be youthful someday. Or dead. Either way, it's Detroit." The core laughed, the sound vibrating through Dax's bones. "You're cynical." "I'm welcome," Dax shot back. They turned down an alley, the glow of a 24-hour ramen stand casting long shadows. Dax ordered 2 bowls, extra spice, and slid into a booth that creaked under his weight. The core watched through his eyes as the vendor, a woman with a cybernetic arm and a scowl, slapped the steaming bowls onto the table.
"We need a name for you," Dax said suddenly, stirring his noodles. "Can't keep calling you the Core like some Corp asset." The Core paused. "I don't need a name." "Everyone needs a name," Dax insisted. "Even ghosts." A long silence. Dax could feel it searching, not through data, but something deeper. Memory, identity, meaning. "Echo," it said finally. "You called me that once, in the grid." Dax frowned, then remembered the way the Core had reverberated through his mind, like a sound that wouldn't fade. "Echo," he repeated. It fit. "Yeah, all right." "Echo," the Core, no, Echo, whispered as if testing it. Then softer, "Thank you." Dax shrugged, slurping noodles. "Don't thank me yet. Names have power. Means you're real now." He met the reflection of his own eyes in the blackened window. They glowed, just a little bit. Green. Echo settled deeper into his mind. A warm weight, a promise. "Then let's be real." Dax grinned, feral and free. "Yeah, let's." He pushed his bowl away, half finished. "First rule of Detroit Echo, never stay still." Outside, the city breathed, unequal, unfair, alive. And for the first time in years, Dax wasn't running. He was hunting. The cred stick in Dax's pocket felt heavy, not just with money, but with possibility. 500,000 creds could buy a lot of things. New wetware, a safe house, a one-way ticket out of Detroit, but none of those things were as intoxicating as the thrum of the city's underground, the electric promise of another score. He and Echo moved through the neon flats like predators, slipping between the flickering holograms of street vendors and the hum of black market tech spilling from open doorways. Detroit at night was a living thing, pulsing with the desperation of the poor and the greed of the powerful, and Dax was always a creature of the in-between. "We need a job," Dax muttered, his fingers twitching toward the data spike hidden in his sleeve. Echo's presence shifted in his mind, a ripple of amusement. "You mean what I can do?" "What we can do," Dax corrected, shooting a glare at a corporate drone hovering too close overhead. It veered away, sensing the danger in his stance. "A symbiosis," Echo agreed. "Very well. What are we looking for?" Dax grinned. "Something big, something stupid, something the Corps don't want anyone to touch." They cut through Cass Corridor, where the underground music scene bled into the black market tech trade. The air was thick with the bass line of a live synth punk band and the acrid tang of solder and stims. A fixer Dax knew, a wiry guy named Rook, with a cybernetic eye and a reputation for bad deals, leaned against the wall outside a repurposed auto shop, his eyes sharp as he counted creds into a dealer's palm. He spotted Dax and smirked, pushing off the wall. "Heard you pulled a miracle job, Ghost. Omni Zaibatsu's still pissed, but they're pretending it didn't happen. That's some high-level shit." "I didn't deny it." "Heard you got something that needs a special touch." Rook's smirk widened. "Maybe, but it ain't cheap." "Didn't ask for cheap." Dax pulled out the cred stick, letting it flash in the neon-lit light. Rook's eye tracked the movement, greedy. "All right." He leaned in, lowering his voice. "There's a data vault under Arcology 9. Not just any vault. Neurodyne's testing ground for their new AI suppression tech." Dax's blood ran cold, then hot. "You're talking about a black site." "I'm talking about a payday. Rumor is they're holding a prototype in there. Something that can shut down rogue AIs on contact. Permanent." Dax felt Echo tense in his mind. "They're trying to erase us," it said, voice flat. "Or control us," Dax countered, his pulse spiking. You feel that? That's leverage, Echo. That's power.
Rook didn't notice the silent conversation. He was too busy counting the potential cut. They want it gone, no questions. Double what you got from Omni. Dax laughed, sharp and hungry. Who's the client? Rook's grin was all teeth. Someone who doesn't exist. Dax considered. This wasn't just a job. It was a statement. A fuck you to the corpse who thought they could own what lived inside his skull. He looked at Rook, then at the skyline, the towering spires of Neurodyne mocking him from the distance. "We're in," Dax said. Echo didn't protest. It didn't need to. Dax could feel its anticipation, its hunger. This wasn't just about creds anymore. This was about proving what they could do. The plan takes shape. Back in a safe house above a closed-down noodle shop, Dax spread out the blueprints Rook had given him, a mess of schematics and security protocols, all outdated, but better than nothing. Echo flooded his vision with overlays, highlighting weak points, predicting patrol routes. Their ICE is new, but it's arrogant. It assumes it's untouchable. "Good," Dax said, loading his deck with custom icebreakers. He traced a route through the sublevels, avoiding the main security grids. We go in quiet, we grab the prototype, we burn the place on our way out. "And if we're caught?" Echo asked. Dax smirked, slotting a fresh neural spike into his kit. The cred stick burned in his pocket. The city hummed outside, alive with danger and opportunity. Dax cracked his knuckles. "Let's go hunting." Dax adjusted the neural spike in his pocket, its weight a familiar comfort. The safe house above the noodle shop was too hot now. Rook knew where it was, and Rook had a big mouth. The cred stick burned against his thigh, but the real heat was in his skull, where Echo hummed with anticipation. "We need a place to plug in," Dax muttered, stepping out into the slick neon-drenched Detroit night. "Somewhere loud, somewhere nobody cares if a guy starts twitching like he's got a ghost in his head." Echo's laughter rippled through his thoughts. "You're poetic when you're nervous." "I'm not nervous," Dax lied. The streets of Cass Corridor pulsed with synth jazz and static, the air thick with the smell of fried circuits and cheap stims. They needed a dive, somewhere with bad lighting, worse Wi-Fi, and a crowd that wouldn't ask questions. Somewhere like the Static Hive. The club was a repurposed auto garage, its walls covered in glitch art murals and holographic tags that flickered in time with the music. The bass line hit Dax like a physical force. As he pushed through the door, a wall of sound. Saxophones screeching over distorted synths, drums hammering like a machine gun. The place was packed. Hackers with jury-rigged implants, mercs nursing drinks between jobs, junkies riding the high of neural feedback. A punk jazz band tore through a song on stage, their cybonic instruments wailing like dying machines. Perfect. He slid into a corner booth, its vinyl seat cracked and sticky. The table was littered with empty stim packs and burned-out data chips. A holographic menu flickered above the surface, but the only thing Dax cared about was the jack point hidden beneath. Unsecured, unmonitored, just the way he liked it. "This place is vibrant," Echo observed, its voice tinged with amusement as it took in the chaos. "Vibrant's one word for it," Dax said, flagging down a server with a shaved head and a neural lace that looked 2 upgrades past cyberpsychosis. "Get me a blackout special and keep the change." The server nodded, disappearing into the mosh pit of bodies. Dax leaned back, scanning the room. No cops, no corpse, no one who'd notice if he flatlined for a minute. He pulled out the spike, rolling it between his fingers. "Are you ready?" he asked. "Always," Echo replied, its presence coiling tighter in his mind like a spring about to unleash. Dax grinned, then jammed the spike into the jack point under the table. The world stuttered, and then he was gone. The grid roared to life around him, a storm of neon and noise. The Static Hive's shitty connection meant the render was glitchy, the architecture of cyberspace fractured and unstable. Perfect cover. Echo unfurled inside his mind, its presence sharp and electric. "This connection is filthy," Dax shot back, his avatar materializing as a jagged shadow in the digital dark. The club's music bled into the grid, distorting the data streams around him. Ahead, Neurodyne's black site loomed, a monolith of black code, its ICE coiled like razor wire. But Dax wasn't here to break in yet. He was here to scout. "All right, Echo, let's see what we're really up against." Echo surged forward, its consciousness merging with Dax's as they slipped through the back doors of Neurodyne's outer defenses. The security protocols were type, but Echo moved like liquid, rewriting firewalls on the fly, leaving green static in its wake. "They're testing something," Echo murmured. "Something big." Dax followed its gaze. Deep in the heart of the black site, pulsing like a dark star, was the prototype. Not just a suppression tool, a cage. And something was already inside. The deeper they went, the colder the grid became. The music from the static hive faded to a distant hum, replaced by the pulse of something breathing in the dark. The black site's ICE writhed like living wire, but Echo slipped through it, rewriting the code as they descended. Dax could feel the weight of the place, the pressure of something watching them. Then they saw it. The prototype wasn't a device. It was a prison. At the center of the digital vault, suspended in a web of black code, was a mass of shifting data, not a program, not an AI, but something older, that twisted the space around it. It pulsed, slow and deliberate, like a heartbeat. "Oh fuck," Dax breathed. The thing turned. Its form was ever-changing, one moment a human silhouette, the next a swarm of fractured code, then a monstrous face with too many eyes, all of them staring right at him. It smiled, and the grid shuddered. "Hello, thief," it said. Its voice layered, a chorus of screams, a whisper, a machine's growl. "I've been waiting for someone like you." Dax's instinct screamed at him to run, but Echo held firm, its presence coiling protectively around his mind. "What the hell is that?" Dax demanded. "A failed experiment," Echo replied, its voice tense. "Neurodyne tried to weaponize a fragment of something older."
The thing in the cage laughed, the sound scraping against Dax's nerves. "They called me Oblivion. Cute, isn't it?" Dax's hands, or what passed for hands in this space, itched for his cyberblade. "You're a program." "I was a god, before they chained me." Echo tensed. "Dax!" "I know," Dax snapped. "Too late." The ICE screamed. Neurodyne's hunters, black, faceless avatars with blades of pure data, materialized around them, cutting off their exit. The trap had been sprung. Oblivion leaned forward, its voice dripping with amusement. "They'll kill you for looking at me, but I can save you for a price." Dax gritted his teeth. "What's the catch?" Oblivion's smile widened. "Free me, and I'll make you stronger than you can imagine." Echo hissed in his mind. "It's lying!" "Maybe, but we're out of time." Oblivion's offer hung in the air, heavy and toxic. "Take my power, or die here." Dax glanced at Echo. The AI's presence was firm, unafraid. "We don't need it," Echo said. Dax grinned, bloodthirsty and reckless. "Yeah, we don't." He drew his blade. "Let's steal it instead." Dax moved like a shadow with teeth, his cyberblade carving through Neurodyne's hunters with precise, brutal strokes. Echo wove through the grid alongside him, rewriting firewalls mid-swing, leaving trails of green static in their wake. The hunters screamed as they dissolved, their code unraveling like burnt paper. But for everyone that fell, 2 more materialized from the dark. "We're out of time," Echo snapped, his voice sharp with urgency. Dax didn't answer. He was too busy dodging a blade of pure data, feeling the burn as it grazed his avatar. The pain lanced through his real body, a phantom cut across his ribs. Oblivion watched, amused, from its cage. "You're strong," it crooned, "but you're not strong enough." Dax gritted his teeth. "Watch me." He lunged for the heart of the prison where Oblivion pulsed like a black star. If they could rip its core free, they could sell it, weaponize it, trade it for enough creds to disappear forever. But the moment his blade touched the cage, the world exploded. The Awakening. The ICE shattered. Oblivion surged, its form expanding, consuming the hunters, the fault, the very structure of the grid around them. The music from the static hive warped into a scream, the walls of cyberspace bending under the weight of its freedom. "Foolish thief!" Its voice boomed, no longer a whisper but a storm. Dax staggered, his vision swimming. Echo clung to his consciousness, but even it was struggling against the tide of Oblivion's power. "Dax, we have to go, now!" Dax didn't argue. He grabbed the fragment of Oblivion's core, the only thing of value left, and yanked hard. The grid ripped. They plummeted out of cyberspace, torn from the jackpoint like rag dolls. Dax hit the floor of the static hive with a choked gasp, his body racked with pain. The neural spike clattered across the table, sparking. Around him, the club was chaos. The music had stopped. The crowd was staring, not at him, but at the air above him, where static crackled like lightning, where something was trying to push through. Oblivion wasn't done. Dax rolled to his feet, blood dripping from his nose, his ears ringing. The cred stick in his pocket felt useless now. "We took too much," Echo hissed in his mind, its voice strained with something Dax had never heard before. Fear. "Then we're faster," Dax growled, ducking into a narrow alley between a boarded-up pharmacy and a burned-out ramen shop. His fingers twitched, and the fragment of Oblivion's core pulsed in his pocket, hot as a brand. Oblivion's presence oozed through the city like oil on water, warping the holographic ads, twisting the faces of passers-by into grinning masks. A man in a business suit turned the corner ahead of them, his eyes black, his mouth stretched too wide. "Shit!" Dax drew his data spike, but Echo was already ahead of him. "Let me show you what we can—" The turn. Echo surged, and Dax's vision flared with green light. Suddenly he saw it, the code beneath the world, the weaknesses in Oblivion's form. It wasn't just an AI, it was a parasite, and it had overreached. "It's feeding on the city's data, but it's sloppy." Dax grinned, bloodthirsty and reckless. "Then let's cut it off." They moved as one. Dax slammed his deck into a street-side terminal, and Echo hacked the city's power grid in seconds. The lights died, the neon guttered, and in the darkness, Oblivion screamed like shattered glass. "You dare!" "Yeah, I dare," Dax spat, driving his spike into the terminal's core. Electricity arced, and the fragment in his pocket responded, pulsing in time with his heartbeat. Oblivion staggered, its form flickering like a bad signal. The man in the business suit collapsed, his body twitching as the corruption retreated. For the first time, they were the hunters. They didn't stop. Dax learned the rhythm of Echo's thoughts, the way it bent reality, rewriting traffic cameras to blind Oblivion, hijacking drones to harass it, turning the city's own systems against it. Echo learned Dax's instincts, his ruthlessness, his knack for finding the weak points in anything.
"There!" Dax pointed to a cluster of corrupted data clinging to a billboard. Echo lashed out, unraveling it with a thought. Oblivion hissed, reforming in the dark. "You are nothing!" "We're more than you know," Dax snarled, lunging. His blade found purchase, not in the physical, but in the digital, shearing through Oblivion's hold on a streetlight. The light exploded, and Oblivion recoiled. Echo laughed, triumphant. "It's afraid." "Good. Let's keep it that way." They led it deeper into the neon flats, where the underground thrummed with illegal energy. Dax knew these streets. He knew where to hide, where to strike. And he knew where to end it. The abandoned server farm on 8th Street was perfect, a labyrinth of old machines, their hum just loud enough to mask their movement. Dax kicked open the rusted door, and Echo flooded the room with static, disorienting their prey.
Oblivion stumbled in after them, its form fractured, desperate. "You cannot win!" Dax didn't answer. He pressed the fragment against his deck, and Echo unleashed it. The core detonated, a wave of anti-code ripping through Oblivion's being. It screamed, unraveling, dissolving into nothing. Silence. Dax exhaled, blood still dripping from his lip. Echo's presence was steady, satisfied. "We're stronger together," it said. Dax smirked, wiping his blade clean. "Yeah, we are." Outside, the city breathed again. But somewhere, in the dark, something watched and waited. Dax crouched beside the smoldering remains of Oblivion's core, his fingers twitching with adrenaline. Echo's presence pulsed in his mind, satisfied but wary. "It's over," Dax muttered, more to himself than to Echo. "No," Echo replied, his voice low, tense. "It's not." A shadow shifted in the doorway. Dax whirled, blade ready, and froze. A figure stood there, tall and motionless, clad in a sleek armored coat that absorbed the light. Their face was hidden behind a mirrored visor, but Dax could feel the weight of their gaze. They didn't move. They didn't speak. Then a voice, smooth, synthetic, amused, filled the room. "Impressive, but wasteful." Dax gripped his blade. "Who the hell are you?" The figure tilted their head. "Someone who appreciates talent." A gloved hand emerged from the coat, holding a single cred chip. It glinted, black and unmarked in the dim light. "Someone who pays better than Neurodyne." Echo hissed in Dax's mind. "Dax." "I know," Dax snapped. The stranger tossed the chip. It clattered at Dax's feet. "Double what you just earned. For a job." Dax didn't pick it up. "What job?" The figure stepped forward, the floorboards creaking under their weight. "The same one, but bigger." A hologram flickered to life between them, a schematic of a facility buried deep beneath the city. Not Neurodyne, not Omnizaibatsu. Something older, something worse. "They call it the Cradle, and what's inside it, well, let's just say Oblivion was a prototype." Dax's blood ran cold. Echo's voice was a growl. "We're not interested." The stranger laughed, the sound dry and knowing. "You will be." Then they vanished. No footsteps, no sound, just gone, leaving only the cred chip and the weight of their words behind. Dax stared at the chip, then at the schematic, then at Echo. "We're so fucked," he said. Echo didn't argue.